Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Strictly Healthy. So pleased to have you here. And you wouldn't believe what I did a little bit earlier today. I went out and did a quick walk around the neighborhood because I was so worried about having my next guest that's coming on. He's a personal trainer. His name is Duncan Attwood. And I didn't want him to know that I hadn't exercised at all today. So that's what I was doing just before going on live. Anyway, I want to welcome you now, Duncan. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I am very well, Linda. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Well, let's see what we can get through today. So I always try and get my guests to introduce themselves and let us know who they are, a little bit of their backstory, so we can understand where you're coming from and understand that you have the expertise and the knowledge to share with us. And of course, Strictly Healthy deals with all things to do with your health holistically, so emotional, mental, physical, and we also look at business health because that affects us as well. Now we're combining today. We're going to talk a little bit about physical health as well as business health, and because you're a business owner and you're going to hopefully share with us a few tips about your business, Fit 20, how you got involved with it, and a little bit more about the science behind what you're doing, because you're doing something a little bit unique, aren't you?
Very much so, yes, we are.
Great.
So, okay, I'll start about myself. So, yes, I'm Duncan Attwood, and you asked me before about how I got into the industry. Well, when I was younger, I don't mind sharing, I was a very overweight and rather unhealthy child. My parents are down the route of you will clear your plate, but they weren't so much down the route of now go and do some exercise to get rid of that. So I ended up having a number of health issues, one of them being asthma and obviously associated issues with being overweight. By chance, I got into kayaking, and particularly whitewater kayaking and slalom.
Wow. I love whitewater rafting. I've done that.
Oh, awesome. We should go sometime. I'm up for that.
I don't know. I did that years ago, mind you, but yeah, carry on.
That's fine. So yeah, I got into that in sort of at the age of 10, 11 through scouting. I managed to get into doing a bit of kayaking, loved it, and then took it up competitively. And I got very good. I got coached by Olympic coaches. And as you can imagine, my physique significantly changed during that time frame. Yes. And more importantly, as well as my physique changing, all the health issues I had and the doctors were helping me with disappeared. Because when I was younger, when I was about the age of probably 6, I thought I wanted to be a doctor, a GP, because they were constantly helping me with the ailments I had. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. But then finding exercise sorted out all these issues in a natural way, I was like, well, actually, there's better ways of doing this. I'd rather go down the fitness route. So I then did a degree in sports science and health studies. I've also got a master's in management. There's the business element part. And I started my career really within big box gyms. So David Lloyd, Bannatynes, Village Hotels. And latterly it was more golf clubs with health clubs. But always in a management capacity is what I've been doing, employing many personal trainers over that time. Then I found Fit 20. And don't get me wrong, throughout the years of being in big box gyms, I saw many people get results, but I saw a lot that didn't. And I would have felt disappointed for them, and it's mainly because they weren't training effectively. They might be going through the motions, so they're going, a couple of times, 3 times a week, but they're not getting results. And a year down the line, they're looking the same as they were when they first came in, and that's very frustrating for them. And like I say, by chance, I came across Fit 20, and Fit 20 is a franchise. It started
out. It is a franchise. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yeah. So it started out in Holland. Where they've now got over 130 studios. So it's a well-established brand in Holland. We're now in 10 countries, but new into the UK. And I was one of the first people to buy into the franchise when I heard about it. And don't get me wrong, hearing about what they do, I was very skeptical, and I don't mind admitting that, thinking you can do it very quickly in a very scientific way to training. But I was intrigued, and I went along, trained with them, and I actually went in my suit because I used to wear suits a lot for work because I was in management. Went along in my suit and they trained me in my suit. I took my jacket off, did the training session, and I was blown away by it.
Really?
Yeah, did all the research, and more importantly, it's the member stories that got me buying into it.
Right, right. And how long have you been doing it? Like, how long have you had your franchise, Fit 20?
So I bought it in 2018, and I started my first studio in Exeter. And that was in the January, 7th of January, we went live 2019. So it's been going for just over 2 years.
Right. Now, 2019, significant because we all know what happened in 2020. So
Yeah.
how did that affect what you're doing?
Well, clearly we're one-on-one personal training with people in our studio, and that had to stop because obviously what happened with COVID. But I had a number of members that were begging me to stay open. They were saying, look, can you just not shut the curtains, and nobody will know we're here. But I couldn't do that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. The
I
law's
know.
the law, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up the franchise owners in the UK. We got together and said, "Look, what can we be doing for our members? We've got to do something to help them." So we took our style of training, the science behind it, and rather than just being in the studio where we've got all the equipment to do it, we did it online via Zoom into people's homes and using their body weight as the resistance to do the training, but using our style of training, the science behind it, and that kept people going through lockdown.
So are you carrying on with that still now, or are you allowed to? I know gyms are open now, so are you allowed to have people back in?
Absolutely. So yeah, so we when we were allowed to reopen, we got all our members back in again. Even that, those that were training online, they came back, which was great because don't get me wrong, what we do in the studio is a much higher level. You get much better results than what we can do online. But the online, we called it an emergency ration to keep people going. But having said that, we did pick people up, or I certainly did, in further afield from where we are. I've got people up in North Wales that are training with me, and I know, and they're never going to make it to the studio because we're based in Exeter. But what I said is, even when we go back, we'll keep supporting those people online that are too far from the studio. But if you can get to a studio, then we put them all into the studio. So we've only got a few that are online. Most people are on in the studio.
So are there no other Fit 20s in the UK or what?
Yeah, we've got 7 sites that are live in the UK at the moment.
7.
7, yes.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. But not one in Wales, did you say, or Scotland?
No. The closest to the ones in Wales would probably be Leeds. So it's quite a distance.
That is a distance, definitely. Yeah. Yes. Right. So we've been hearing about this studio. I've been in myself, and I had a little bit of a session with you. And I got to tell you, yes, I was skeptical too. Not skeptical so much. I believe, you can achieve anything once you put the hard work in. So I believe that aspect of it. It was just a struggle to think that it didn't. I don't know. You're saying we can do this in 20 minutes and we only need, was it 20 minutes a week? Is that what you said?
Each week, 20 minutes.
Okay, good. Can you explain a bit about how that happens then?
Yes. So I try not to bore people with too much science, but essentially the way it works is you've got 4 muscle fiber types in each of your muscles. And the way we do our trainings, we recruit them in order. So the type 1 muscle fiber is used for gentle exercise. If you to go for a walk, you're using probably type 1 muscle fibers. When it gets too much for your type 1 to deal with it, then type 2A come into play. Then when that gets too much, it's type 2AB. And finally, with maximum exertion, you're talking type 2B kicks into play. But that really is when you're sort of clinging on for dear life. Yeah. Okay. So that's when it comes in. So the way this works is we recruit all 4 muscle fiber types. Now, with type 1, when you exhaust it, it only takes about 90 seconds and you've got the full capacity back in again of that muscle. It recovers very, very quickly with that muscle fiber. All the way through to type 2B, which takes days to recover when that's been exhausted.
Right? Okay.
So if you've trained all the way through, you need to allow that type 2 muscle fiber to come back before you train again. And as that takes between 5 and 7 days, roughly, it depends on your age, but to get that full strength back, that's why we do it once a week. Because if you train again before that one's come back in our style of training, then you haven't allowed it to recover and you haven't really gained the benefits from the exercise.
I see. Yeah. Okay. And just in simple terms, can you explain what type A and type, all these different types of muscles are?
So type 1 is basically all muscle fibers contain all four, right? But they recruit each muscle fiber type in order depending on what they're doing. Don't get me wrong. If you do something like if you're to jump off a wall, I'm talking something 3 or probably 4 foot high, your type 2B muscle fibers will kick in instantly because they need to really stop you from crashing into the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's when your muscles at maximum exertion trying to do what you've asked of it. But most people, when they're training, if you think about going for a walk, you said you went for a walk earlier today, you were only working on a type 1 muscle fiber.
Oh,
So you've still got the others that weren't being used at all and weren't being trained.
yes, yeah.
And if you think about that, the use it or lose it, we all know if you don't train it, you lose the ability to access it and it weakens.
Mm-hmm.
You're not training all the way through all 4 fiber types, you're going to lose the ability as you get older. And that's where people start to get sluggish, they feel weaker, they feel tired, and life gets a bit more challenging. And it's because they've lost strength.
Okay, good. And you have special equipment for that purpose in your studio.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
I'm gonna attempt to try and show that, if I may.
Absolutely. Yeah, there we go. So the resistance machines that are being used, and they are the Nautilus equipment, and they are the best you can possibly use really for what we're doing. They're very, very smooth. If you look at a normal gym, I'm talking any big box gym, even the higher end places that you go to, their equipment isn't smooth enough. You've got to bear in mind it needs to be for us because we're doing it very slowly. All the movements are very slowly performed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're not fast explosion like you'd normally see people do in a gym. We don't do any of that.
Okay.
So if you're trying to do it on, I'd say, normal machines, then you find there's notches in them and they don't run smoothly. With ours, they are exceptionally smooth. They're sort of clinical style. And in that way, you don't feel any notches. The cam profiles are perfect. So they mean that the load is even all the way through the range. So they are very specific for what we do.
So the key to do it slowly then?
Yes.
To do the exercise slowly.
Absolutely. Few things when you do it slowly, the intensity is that much higher, because if you think about it, if you were to push out really fast, I'm doing this if I'm doing a chest press, if you push out quick, momentum takes you through. And that's what a lot of people do when they train on their own. They're training poorly. So not all of the muscles being trained correctly. When you do it slowly, the whole muscle is engaged all the way through the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that happens is because it's done slowly, we can spot what we call compensations. And they're little cheats that our body does to make the exercise easier. So for instance, the shoulders could, if I'm doing a chest press, the shoulders could come up in the air, the wrists can drop. Yeah, all these little things is your body's way of trying to cheat and make it easier. But the problem is if you do that, you're then not training the muscles that you're supposed to be for the exercise. You're using others to make it easier. We don't want that. We want to keep it perfect.
So you train one-on-one then, do
Yes.
you, with each person?
We can do 1 to 2, so 1 trainer and 2 people. But clearly with COVID and what's happened at the moment, we're keeping it one-on-one unless they are from the same family. Yeah, if they're from the same household, then we can train the 2 people at once. But what we as trainers, and this I think that image was taken before the lockdown, we now wear masks and we keep 2 meters distance from our members. So there's no risk of transmission. And we clean the machine down the moment somebody gets off it, it's cleaned, ready for the next person.
I see, yes. Yeah.
Very COVID safe.
So how many pieces of equipment do you actually use in the studio? How many?
We tend to do 5 exercises that we do in each session. We actually have 7 that we can do, and we sometimes vary them from people, but you're working big muscle groups. So for instance, on a chest press, you work in the pectorals and obviously the triceps and the stabilizing muscles in the shoulders. We then got, you can see the one, well, you've just come off that there, but that was obviously a lat pull down.
I'll go back.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a lat pull down. So you're working in the biceps, forearm grip, and the lats in the back. Then you've got a leg press, which works the quads, hamstrings, glutes, and the calf. And then we've got other machines like the abdominals and the back extension, and then you've got hip adduction and abduction. So yeah, they're the main ones. But using big muscle groups is the idea. That way you get the best benefit.
Right. So doing this type of exercise and this type of workout, how quickly can we see a benefit?
Right. So it varies from person to person. But what I say to people, within 3 months, you will be noticing differences yourself. Now, with our training, we record every exercise you do every time you come in. So we can see clearly exactly how you're performing week on week. And our system actually produces graphs to show you how that performance is going. And that becomes quite motivational for our members because they can see progression as they go through. And although we can see the progression quite quickly, the system actually ignores the first few weeks because that's just trying to get used to the exercise and get the right weights for you. So that takes a couple of weeks to do. And then it says, now this is your base level. We want to see you progress from here. Right. So we see that very quickly. And our expectation is pretty much within 3 months, you'll get about 20% stronger than when you started. So it's quite significant. And then, but more importantly, it's what do you notice that has changed? And for everybody, that could be slightly different. So it's anything from, your waist is coming in, your body's getting a bit more toned up in certain areas, through to alleviating back pain. That's a big one we get with people. They come to us with backache and back pain. And they can find within 3 months, and I've had members, I've got testimonials on this, where it's completely disappeared, the back pain has. Yet they came to me on medication, having changed mattresses and not sleeping properly through the night. They find that now it's all gone. Everything's great. And it's because we've built up the muscle to support the spine properly. Because bear in mind, the back is supported by the muscles. And if you've allowed bad posture, lifting technique over many years, it's not evenly distributed. And then you'll get aches and pains in the back. Whereas if we strengthen it up properly, it's amazing how all those aches and pains go away.
That is fantastic. That sounds great. Now, I wanted to ask though, because I see that you don't discourage people from coming in with their corporate dress on or their those types. People don't have to change into a workout outfit to do these exercises. Is that right? And why is that?
Right. The biggest reason why people change is because of the thought they're going to be sweating, getting hot and sweaty doing it. There's a couple of things to realize with our style of training. First of all, our studios are all air conditioned. So we hold the temperature at a very set level, so it keeps you cool. The other thing that we do is because our training is done slowly and it's controlled, and we're looking for momentary muscle failure, ideally is what we're looking for, then you find you don't overheat. And if you don't overheat, you don't sweat. Bear in mind, sweating is only a byproduct of when you get hot, your body sweats to cool it down again. But if we don't let you get to that stage, then you don't find you're sweating. And the most our members really get at the end of the full session is maybe a little bit of sweat on the brow, but you're not pouring with sweat or anything. So I've got people who come in suits, just take the jacket off, do the training, back to work. And the beauty is it literally is 20 minutes from start to finish.
Really? Well, okay. I understand, like sometimes us ladies anyway, we have some restrictions with our clothing, etc. We can't use, do these things. So you still don't think it's necessary to change into something more loose and comfortable, etc.
Don't get me wrong. It depends what you've come in with. I tend to say with ladies, stay away from high heels, skirts and dresses. But generally, apart from that, it's okay. If you're wearing something comfortable, you'll be fine. And most shirts have enough give. That's not a problem. Don't get me wrong. If you're wearing a really tight blouse, that might not be a good idea.
No.
But after you've been once, you'll know, well, on today, I can still dress smart, but maybe not quite in that tight outfit that I've got there. Maybe something a little bit looser would be good.
Okay, all right. So this sounds very good and encouraging. Does it help with weight loss?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Now, the science behind that is you've got to bear in mind the muscle is an active tissue, right? So it burns calories, more than body fat does. So if you think about your body as a vehicle, because it moves you around, and your muscles being the engine of your vehicle, and you liken it to a vehicle that's got maybe a strong engine versus a vehicle with a weak engine, the strong engine always uses more fuel. And that's even if it's idling in the car park, not going anywhere. If you've got a 5 litre Range Rover versus a 1 litre Micra, the Range Rover's engine's using a lot of fuel just to keep it going. So our body works the same way. So if we've got more muscle in this, if we're stronger, good quality lean muscle that's there, then you're going to be burning more calories. And that's even at rest. So even as you're sat down now, Linda, if you're stronger, your body's going to be using more calories just to stay alive.
I like it.
Right, and the other thing I should say as well is when you do strength training exercises, your body's it keeps burning the calories about, well, it varies from science, but you're looking at least 90 minutes after exercise. Which, if you take traditional forms of cardio exercise, the moment you stop, it stopped. But
I
because we
see.
go to maximum exertion, your body's repaying that debt for the next 90 minutes. So you
Okay.
get a
All right.
longer burn from the exercise, and because you're stronger, you're burning calories more anyway.
Sounds good to me. So what are the hours like for the studio? It's not 24 hours because
No,
you're saying, people more or less have to make an appointment, I guess, because they're
it is.
coming in one to one.
Yeah.
So what are the hours like for your training?
Yeah. So we have in our calendar from 8 in the morning until 8 in the evening, Monday to Friday. And
Okay.
bear in mind, it's 20 minutes once a week. Most people can find 20 minutes somewhere in their working week to do it.
Once a
And
week, you're saying? That's all we
absolutely,
need.
all you need, if you're training in our style, once a week.
So do you think that you could complement it with, say, like walking around the
Yeah.
neighborhood or anything like that, any kind of aerobics or anything like that? Should we do that, or it's not necessary, or what?
You don't have to do that because our training will give you your exercise for the week. But what we tend to find is when people have been training with us for a couple of months, they start to find they've got a lot more energy and they want to do more. And we say, go and do it with our blessing. Find something you enjoy and do it for fun. So if you like to go for a walk, if you like to go for a run or a bike ride or swimming or tennis or whatever it might be, do it because you enjoy it rather than necessarily doing it because you're thinking I have to exercise, because you're getting the exercise with us anyway. What we say to people, though, is don't train in our style more than once a week. Because of the fact we've got to allow that type 2B to come back to its full strength. If you were to do it any more than that, you can actually slow the results down that you'll get by training more than once in our style. Yeah, and I tried it in my first year. Towards the end of it, I tried training twice a week to see what would happen, and my results got worse. I was like, well, stop that then.
Yeah, you don't want that. Okay, sounds very good, very interesting. Can I ask if you offer any nutritional advice to people then?
As Fit 20, no, we don't. Okay, so as a brand, as a company, that's not what we look at. I always think with these things, you want to be a specialist in a certain area, and you need to know where your limitations are. Now, having said that, I have got one of my trainers is a nutrition coach as well, so he does give people advice around nutrition if it's needed, and I direct people to him because he's got more of a knowledge in that area. Don't get me wrong, I've got knowledge in it as well that I've picked up over 20 years of being in the industry, but
Yes.
I'm not a specialist, so I tend to refer to people like him first. But
Yeah.
even he knows where his limitations are, and then I like to partner up with other companies, and I'll say, now you need to go to a nutritionist, in which case I'll put you in this person's direction that they can help them. So yes, we can help, but that's not what we specialize in. We specialize in the exercise.
In the exercise of it. That's great. So you don't offer any advice on supplements or anything of that nature then?
Not necessarily. Again, we can give a little bit of tips if people want to. I'll be truthful. I'm not one who really advocates a lot of supplements. I think, don't get me wrong, they have their place for whatever style of training you're doing. But you can often get that from a natural source as well, if you look for it. It's just finding the right way.
What about protein shakes? Because they
Yeah.
always say you should do that, take in more protein, especially after a good workout like that.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that?
You can do. I wouldn't say not. I just think there are other ways you could do it as well. There's natural foods you can have that will give you the protein. I mean, go and have a bit of fresh chicken breast, would give you protein. You don't have to go down the shake route. But having said that, there's nothing to say. I wouldn't say don't do it. I just, it really depends on the individual. And if it works for you, keep doing it. I do advocate all forms of exercise. I'm not one who's very set in necessarily one way, because there are lots of ways of getting results. It's finding the right one for you. And, there's some people that love exercise. And not being funny, if you like going 3 to 5 times a week training, brilliant, stick with it. That's going to get you the results.
Yes.
What often happens, though, is people then say, well, I don't want to train that often. And if I need to do that, I won't do anything. And they do nothing. And that's really bad. Something is always better than nothing. So then I say to people, well, find, if you don't like doing particular things, but you need to do it, find something that's of such minimal inconvenience to you that you're happy to do it on a regular basis. So for instance, Fit 20, even if you don't like exercise, it's 20 minutes once a week.
Yeah.
And the way I like it, it's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
We don't wake up going, I want to brush my teeth today. This is great. What we do is we go, well, actually, I brush my teeth because I know what the consequences are if I don't. And it's got such a small inconvenience, I don't mind doing it every day. With us, it's 20 minutes once a week.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Very, very good advice, good information, etc. I see that we have Patricia now. She's here,
Oh.
and she probably has some questions. And I'll also, in the meantime, check to see if anybody else has sent us any questions online or whatever. So we'll pull Patricia in now. Let's see if we can get there. No, that's not the one. Let's try that. There, I think we've got her on there now. Patricia,
Hello, Patricia.
Oh, you're getting some feedback there, Patricia.
Yes, I'm picking up the feedback. What can I do?
Hello, Patricia.
Can you turn that down? You're getting some feedback there, Patricia.
I'm just on my laptop. You can't hear me now?
I can hear you, but no, we're not getting the feedback. So this is brilliant.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you, yeah. I can hear you, but no, we're not getting the feedback. Oh, we're still getting a bit of feedback there.
Can you
So
hear me?
you may have to turn off that one on your laptop, or turn off the feed on your laptop. Getting a bit of feedback there. So you may have to turn off that one on your laptop. You turn off your feed. Turn off the... Yeah.
Back.
There you go.
You can't hear me now.
I can. We can.
I can't hear you because I turned it down.
Oh.
You can't hear me now.
If you take off your Facebook or whatever program you're watching us.
Oh, the Facebook one.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, this is terrible. I'm so sorry.
Take off your Facebook or whatever program you're watching us. Because you're getting the feed in with Facebook.
Oh, this is terrible. I'm so sorry.
We'll get there. Because you're getting the feed in with Facebook. I might just mute you for now until you've got that sorted. So Duncan, yes, just back to you now. What would you recommend for people to say in starting a business in this situation we're in? Do you think that it's a good idea, and would you recommend something like what you're doing? Or
Yes, I would highly, highly recommend Fit20 to anybody who's thinking about starting a business. Buying into the franchise has been the best thing I've ever done. And I don't mind sharing that actually we've grown through COVID, and to the point now I've got more members now than I've ever had. And I just think that's amazing. If you look at the industry as a whole and how they've suffered, the fact that Fit20 has not just survived it, but we're thriving off the back of it, is just one hell of a testament to how good the product really is, and and our members are getting results. They wouldn't stay with us if they weren't. And I've got people with me that joined back in January of 2019. They're still with me now.
Oh, wow.
Because it worked.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I'm certainly going to see if I can join on at some point again.
Lovely.
What about tracking the progress of people? How do you go about doing that then?
Well, we've got an app that we use as the trainers to record every exercise that's done. It's a Fit20 app. It's very specific the way it's done, and it saves the time it takes. Essentially, it's the time it takes for people to get to muscle failure and the weight that they're using, but more importantly, it's the way they do it, and that's where the trainer comes in. We're all very highly trained to the point that even if you're a personal trainer trying to get into Fit20, you'd have to go through another 6-week course to learn what we do, to make sure that you're getting it absolutely bang on. And then we're uniform across the board. So no matter where you go to with Fit20, you're trained in exactly the same way. But the system, as I say, produces graphs to show how you're performing in each of the exercises.
Yeah. So people can see what the progress is, but you can also track as well.
Absolutely.
So, I think Patricia has gone off, but I don't know if she's going to sign back on again.
I can see something in the chat that she's put in, actually.
Oh, has she? Okay. Let's get there. So how would you how would your exercise help with diabetics? People I work with who are diabetic find exercise helps when they have regular exercise, daily exercise. So that was Patricia's question.
Yeah, so when it comes to diabetes, we've had some great results with that, particularly I have to say type 2 diabetics. I've got people that join me that were type 2 diabetic and believe it or not, aren't anymore. And it's purely from our training. And
Really?
the way, yeah, it's amazing how well it works. Essentially what happens, I'll put it in sort of simple terms, but if you imagine you've got that, become diabetic because you've got a lot of blood glucose going around. So a lot of glucose is being held in the bloodstream. Ideally, it wants to come out and get into the muscle and stored as glycogen. But if you're not training, the muscle's already full of glycogen. There's nowhere for it to go. So instead, it sits in the bloodstream, and you end up being diabetic, and you end up being resistant to insulin and all sorts, because the receptors on the muscle on the cells in the muscle become resistant to insulin because they don't want any more glucose going in as glycogen. So they stop being able to do it, and that's when you become diabetic. But if we train properly, essentially you've emptied the muscle of glycogen, and it says, I need more. I need that glucose in the cell to give me the energy again. Right. So it draws it out of the bloodstream into the muscle, stored as glycogen to be used. So if we're training properly, and like I say, we're going for ideally muscle failure on each exercise, then you completely exhausted the muscle. Blood glucose comes in, the glucose comes in, the blood glucose levels drop, and then behold, you're not diabetic anymore. It takes time, but that's how it works.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to get my husband on this then. He could do the help. I just got to get him to your gym. That's all.
Bring him along. I'll do a free session for anybody to come and have a go, by the way. If they want to find out what it's about, come and try it. So anyone watching, free session.
A free session. And how long was that session? 20 minutes? Will it be 20 minutes? Or
we actually allow an hour for that, because then we can go, well, then we can get to know you and what you need, and tailor everything for you. And also, as well as doing that, we can explain how it works in more detail, and obviously you can have a go and find out what it's about. So that's the idea, because I appreciate it's a very different way of training, but it is a scientific approach to it.
Something to get used to, I think, too, isn't it? Now, Patricia's other question, many people talk about doing 10,000 steps. Would your regime bypass this? I think that sort of links into my question about walking as well, whether we need to do other things.
The first thing I would say is the 10,000 steps that a lot of people talk about. I don't know if you know where it came from, but it was actually a marketing campaign by a pedometer company back in the 1950s, I think it was. So there's no scientific basis to doing 10,000 steps. Is the first thing I should get out there. Okay. Now, I'm an advocate of all types of exercise, but if we look at doing 10,000 steps a day, if you were just to go out and walk 10,000 steps and do it at a leisurely pace, you're talking a good couple of hours of walking. That's a lot of a time commitment to be doing every day. They've actually shown it's much better if using the walking side of it. If you're to go out and do just half an hour, so instead of a couple of hours, just half an hour of higher intensity walking. And when I say higher intensity, so that you couldn't sing, but you could maybe hold a conversation, that sort of level, and keep that going for half an hour. The physiological benefits are far, far better than going out and doing 10,000 steps.
I see.
Intensity is key, and I say that to everybody. No matter what you do, try and put it at a higher intensity, and you'll get much better results, and you'll do it in a lot less time as well.
But you say intensity, but not aerobics necessarily, or is that okay?
When you say aerobics, you're on about doing what in a studio class aerobics?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
That's fine. You can still do that. That's great. I'm not saying don't do that, but bear in mind, if you're even just doing the aerobic exercise, if I go back to the muscle fiber types you're using, you're going to be using type 2A, probably type 2AB, but you are certainly not going to be touching type 2B, not by a long shot. You might even only just be touching type 2AB. So you're only going to be using type 1 and type 2A. And if you think about it, that's only 2 of the 4. So you're not really getting the best from the exercise. You can do it, but you need to, the thing is, you've got to bear in mind, you need to do more of it if you're working at a lower intensity. Yeah, if you're working at a higher intensity, you do less of it. Simple as that.
I see. I got it. Yes. Great. Brilliant. You've been fantastic. A fantastic guest. Shared some new information that I think not everybody knew about, or not many knew about. So that is great.
If I've got time, I mean, we have to mention something else. We're running out of time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, the time's gone, but yeah, that's okay.
I just thought it was very, very good to let your listeners know some of the science that's been done recently on us, and a study that's been done, because the academic community have wanted to get hold of Fit20's data for quite some time to see what's happening, because most often in the scientific community they can only do short-term studies on a small number of people, because it's really hard to get people to stick with anything. So what they've done is they've got Fit20's data. Because we record everything, we're all at the same standard, same quality of training everywhere, they can draw really good conclusions about what our training does. And they found, and the study they looked at just under 15,000 people that we had in Fit20 for 7 years, just under 7 years, 6.8 years. And they found that without fail, regardless of your age or gender, in your first year alone, you can expect to get between 30 to 50% stronger, which is amazing. And that is, they've seen that across the board with 15,000 people. So if that doesn't say it works, I don't know what else does.
Well, it sounds like it works. It sounds really brilliant. So I want to thank you for joining us today. That's been absolutely fantastic information.
Very welcome.
So I'm sure that people will take you up on your offer as well, and will be joining the studio at some point.
Brilliant. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Duncan. So that was Duncan Attwood, and based in Exeter, but there's a few of the studios around the UK, so I'm sure you can search and find that. But lovely to have him on. I'm sorry that Patricia couldn't be live to ask her questions, but we'll try and sort that for next time, possibly. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and next week we'll have somebody on that will be talking about some marketing tactics. So please do join us then, same time, same space. Bye for now.